decisions as a collective group, I think, is so important. Oftentimes youth feel like, well, adults, they're old, they don't understand, they don't get what's going on in my life, they don't understand what it's like to grow up in 2015 and that kind of thing. So I think keeping that youth voice in everything that involves a youth is so important because they know their life better than anybody else. They know what their goals are more than anybody else. And growing up, I got that opportunity to really have people in my life that understood that. And they understood how important I was. And it seems so obvious, that if it's somebody's life, what they want and what they need should be most important in the transition. But I think sometimes we get wrapped up in systems and how systems work, and that voice gets lost. And so, that to me is the most important part of the whole process. And so I thank you all for having us be able to kind of talk about, from our perspective, how things can work and should work, so that voice doesn't get lost. Thank you.
Melanie?
Okay. My name is Melanie Hecker, and I am the leader of the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network New York statewide chapter. But aside from that, I'm also a student at Hudson Valley Community College and a part-time employee of Youth Power, which is New York State's statewide youth advocacy group. So really, from day one, both my parents and myself could tell that there was something different about me. And maybe when I was about 6, 7, 8, I knew what that thing was. It was called autism. So most of my childhood, I knew I was autistic, but being a child, I had to have everything be done for me. And I didn't really know a concept of self-advocacy, but all of that was going to change pretty soon. Right before I started college, my grandfather fell down a flight of stairs at my aunt's house. And eventually my grandmother started to develop Alzheimer's as well. It was because of this that my parents were now mostly busy with my grandparents and didn't have time to take care of me, so I had to learn to take care of myself. What really jump-started that was when my school-to-work transition counselor gave me an application for Youth Power's statewide youth leadership conference. So I filled out the application and mailed it in, not expecting at all to get chosen. And what do you know, I was. So I go there and I fall in love with Youth Power. But the real important thing I got there was that I was introduced to the concept of nothing about us without us. I learned at that leadership forum exactly what I need to do to be an advocate, not just for myself, but for other autistics and people with disabilities in general. A few months after that, there's a job opening at Youth Power for the system advocate position. So I apply, I interview, I don't get it. But a few months later, I'm asked to come in and interview for a different position. So I get that position, but 10 months later, get switched into the position I applied for originally. Now, here comes the important part. As I was a few months into working there, my coworker, who I considered my mentor, had this idea to have an Autistic Self-Advocacy Network chapter spun off of Youth Power. So we set that up, and it became this New York statewide chapter. The one big difference between the chapter and Youth Power, however, is that we do allow adults into our chapter. Now, Okay, I've got the professional stuff out of the way. My- With my life, I always knew I was different, but I always knew that different is not necessarily bad. And despite all the challenges that I've had, I've always found ways to kind of get through it all. When I was younger, that meant having coping strategies like keeping a piece of hard candy on me to put in my mouth if I got overstimulated, or knowing to step out of somewhere, like a wedding or bar mitzvah, if I was feeling overstimulated, and stepping out easily, calm me down, I was able to get back in. In fact, at my own bat mitzvah, it was a small affair with a live band instead of a noisy DJ, so that was fine. But as I got older, the strategies had to become more complex, and I had to learn to think for myself instead of having people tell me or suggest to me what to do. But I had some resources to help me with that. One big one was one called Northeast Career Planning. Now I get 2 services from them: supported employment and supported education. Supported employment helps me if there's an issue that comes up in my work, and supported education meets with me every other week at my school to make sure things are doing okay in my classes and in the internship I'm currently in. And another very important thing that has helped me succeed is it's very important to have mentors. I have several mentors. I have my bosses, Stephanie, Zach, Carrie. I have my counselors from Northeast. I have my vocational counselor from the state. And I have professors at my college who I consider mentors. They're essential for guiding me and giving me advice, but not pushing me in a direction, helping me be myself. A good example of this is I was initially signed up to be an X-ray major, and that bombed when I failed anatomy physiology. But then my counselor, he told me that he knew that was going to happen, but he wanted me to figure that out on my own, and that's a really important part of self-advocacy, figuring things out on your own. Aside from the mentors I have, other things that have helped me have included, the past summer, I went to Autistic Self-Advocacy Network's Autism Campus Inclusion Academy. That was a week-long academy in Washington, D.C., where we learned on-campus advocacy skills, and at the end, got to meet with our national legislators. And it was there that I really learned a lot of the stuff that I'm going to need in my advocacy future. And aside from the, structured things that are given to me, the one thing that really helps me build my self-advocacy skills is experience. My experience with Youth Power, my experience with Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, my experience with school. It's all about the experience for me. Now I'll finish off with some of the skills that I think are necessary. Definitely being able to think for yourself, which is what I've learned through all the mentors I've had. Definitely being able to know what's right and wrong, having a sense of morality, and being able to stand up for yourself if something goes wrong. Like a specific professor I had who would call me out for my autism symptoms in the middle of class. Or at my internship, where they'll occasionally point out my autism symptoms and question me about it. But self-advocacy, it's a journey, and I've had a long one, but I think it's been a good one. And that's it.